Hi, I'm Sara Elo Dean. I work at IBM, and I work with lots of customers in Europe on solutions that include AI. And today, I wanted to talk about AI. If I had written a diary during my life about what the main themes are, probably AI would be one of those themes. In the 90s, I was working already in AI, building my master's thesis system. And at the time, the tools were very different. It was all about knowledge representations and ontologies, and it was about Lisp code. So we've come a long way from that. And now that I work with AI, there's lots has changed in the last few years, and we all know why, because foundation models have arrived. So what's different about them? Just a quick revisit. Why are they different from what we used to do before? Well, traditionally, when we train models, we train them on small amounts of data for a specific task, like here, classify this, or summarize, or detect the sentiment, or find what this main concepts are. But now what we do is we actually have pre-trained models, these large language models, which have seen a lot of data ahead of time, and we can use them for multiple purposes by giving them instructions. And we can also have different methods of getting the answers that we want. So what does it look like if I'm talking to a large language model? I don't program anymore, I give instructions. So here's just an example of how would I be, for example, generating a contract using a model. I'll give it instructions, what do I want in the contract, and then I'll give the specifics of the contract, and the model will do the rest, right? So for this, we need good tools, right? We need platforms. We can't just do this sort of randomly. So platforms, our platforms need to, when we consider what platform we're going to go with, there's a lot of questions we need to answer. So for example, we have a platform and we have models in there. What models are we going to use? How have they been trained, right? Key question, how was it trained? Was the data curated? Who selected the data? And for example, are IP rights being, intellectual property rights being honored by using this data? Transparency, another word you may have heard. So can I explain my model? What do I use for it? And can I explain its answers? Can it be customized? Meaning, can I extend, can I add to it so that it fits better for my domain? In my platform? Hallucinations, you've all heard. Hallucination is a model that produces sort of inappropriate, inaccurate answers, but they sound very plausible. So can I detect those? And if I detect them, can I minimize them? Is it safe? Can I take this and can I run it on in my own private environment, in my own data center, for example? And then regulatory compliance, right? Lots of laws, regulations, which are excellent. Anybody adopting AI will need to be able to show that abiding to laws. So lots and lots of questions, and this is because inherently there are many risks that we need to recognize when we adopt AI. And they pretty much fall into three categories. So operational, as in how do I take models to production? Reputational, how do I ensure that my model behaves in a socially acceptable way when it's running in production? And then regulatory, can I ensure that my model complies? So like three sets of types of risks typically. Now, so AI governance. So because of AI governance, we pretty much like the main concepts, three pillars of AI governance are here: lifecycle, risk management, regulatory compliance. So if you remember those three terms, pretty much everything that we do in AI governance falls under one of those three categories. And today we're going to look specifically at lifecycle only, because there's only 20 minutes and I can only show you so much. So now I'm going to walk you through a demonstration of how one can do lifecycle governance in AI. So we're going to talk about operationalizing AI, right? We start and we end in production. How does that happen? And in this demonstration, I'm going to have three personas. We have the model owner, Jaakko. We have the model developer, Sanna. And then we have Ben, who is the model operator. And the situation in this scenario is an insurance company, and there's a new use case that has been identified. And this use case is around summarization. So, I am Jaakko. Hi, I'm Jaakko. So I'm the model owner. We ran a design thinking workshop at our company, and our claims agent said to me, it would be really valuable if when I'm processing these claims, I could have some sort of help, and I could really use a summary, because often there's a lot of things that are being reported, but I really want to help to pick out the key things about the accident and the key impact. Okay, that sounds like a pretty good use case. So I, as a use case owner, I'm going to be the model owner. I'm going to go to my platform and I'm going to register this new use case as an AI use case. I open up, I give it a name, I classify it as a medium risk. So this is about because this model will not impact the livelihood or critical infrastructure or other very critical things. So it is not a high risk use case, it is a medium risk use case. And so I'm going to kick it off by starting with the use case. And here it is in my platform. I have the overview of my use case that we want to implement in my company. I take a peek at the life cycle and at this point, the life cycle is empty because there's no assets. Nothing has been associated with this. We only have a use case. We have no assets to govern. All right. Now, I am Sanna. Hi. So I'm the developer, and I've been assigned to this project, and I've already started working. I'm in the platform, and here's my projects, and I'm going to show you what I've done so far. So I have a couple of different prompts I've been working on, and let me show you how I do it. So I'm in the what's called prompt lab here. It's kind of helpful here to have a view of like the structure of what does a LLM, a large language model, actually expect as input. So I have here at the top, you can see in green, this is one of my instructions. This is what I wanted to do. I could also give some examples of inputs and outputs. But you know what? Zero-shot prompting is a term, right? I'm going to start off by trying how well my model responds to just the instruction. Start simple. I can also choose my models. So a platform, a catalog of models available. I can look at them. I can look at their basically the fact sheets associated with these models, and I can choose the one that's best fit for my use case and the language. In this case, we're doing summarization in English, and Flan is pretty good at that. So that's why I've selected that. Then I have some parameters I need to choose. Okay, so greedy. Greedy means I'm going to want my summary to be extremely conservative, right? I am not going to let it go sort of creative. I want the algorithm to choose the most likely, statistically most likely words for the summary, and therefore it's going to be pretty conservative. That's my greedy algorithm. That's my choice. And now let's give it a try. So I can click on my generate. I give it an input. Here on the left-hand side, you see the input. And in blue, I see what my model gave me as output. I will do this iteratively, obviously, not in this demo. So I can try out different things. But when I feel pretty good about my prompt, I can then say, hey, platform, help me evaluate this for a larger set. So what does evaluation mean in the generative AI world? So I can trigger this on something called, so I can trigger metrics, right? So platforms, typically LLM platforms, will give us some ability to figure out how well the model is responding. But remember, this is free text, right? It's generating text. So I need to be able to compare two pieces of text. So that's actually not, this is still an open research field. So how do I do it? I give examples. So on the left, you see all of the examples of claims. On the right, you see human. My colleagues, the agents, have written high-quality summaries. And that's what I'm going to compare the model output to. So I'm saying, hey, model, generate the summary, and let's compare the two. And there are various metrics to do that out there in the industry, open source, right? I'm looking at overlap of words, how many words and phrases are similar. I can do some vector comparisons. But in the end, I'm getting some kind of metrics that approximately give me a sense of how similar are those two summaries by the model and by the human. So I can upload such a sheet into my platform, and I can say, okay, where's the summary that I'm going to compare to? I will evaluate. So now the system is crunching, it's generating summaries, and then I get some metrics. Okay, so what do the metrics look like? So here first I get a little bit of model health on this page, on this top page. And you'll see there is in green, the token count. Why does that matter? It does matter because large language models are typically priced. The cost of running them is associated with how many tokens were input and output. And a token, you can think about it, it's not a word, but it's almost like a part of a word. It's like a syllable. So these add up. And if you're not careful, you might be using a lot of tokens in your experimentation. So it's good to have that count there. But on the metrics side, let's look at what this gives. So I've got this range of LLM summarization metrics. They compare the two outputs, and I see some scores. Okay, pretty good, actually. Those are pretty high. And then I have some violations, like did these summaries actually, did they pass the threshold, or are they poor? And I do see at the bottom there, readability. You can see the readability. It's below threshold. I had set it at 60%. And this readability basically gives me the score, the model, how easily readable, how simple is the language, how readable is it by a human being. So my score is a bit low, but you know what? Our insurance agents are pretty experts, so I can probably just go with that. So at some point I say, I'm actually happy with it. So I'm gonna go back to my template, my prompt template. I'm gonna go and say, I wanna now associate it with a use case. So I'm gonna start governing this particular asset that I've created. I wanna govern it. So I'm gonna link it to Jaakko's use case, right? He created it earlier. Now I'm gonna say, hey Jaakko, here is the asset that I'm gonna be developing further, and I want it to be governed. So I'm gonna tell the governance part of the platform. I'm gonna say, what approach am I using to solve this solution, right? So to solve the problem. So I'm solving it with the approach called zero-shot prompting, right? Zero-shot prompting. You remember I didn't give any examples to the model. I only gave it the instruction. That's why it's zero-shot, right? So let me create that approach. And I'm going to give a few notes here. This is my first published prompt template here. And I'm going to say, well, I'm still working it. But have a look already, Jaakko. What do you think about this? All right. So I associated it, and there it is. There's my first asset that I'm governing in the use case. Okay. Hey, Jaakko gets notified. I just got notified that Sanna has done some good work, so I'm going to take a look at what she has published. So she has used the FLAN model, right? And I can check out the details because I'm not familiar with this model, so I can take a look at the model card. It will explain to me how the model's been trained, what is the best purpose that it's meant for, and maybe some caveats of where not to use it. So it looks good. It looks like a right model for this kind of use case. I can check out her prompt. That's not my area of expertise, but everything is transparent. I can see what she's done. Looks good. And then I can see that she has now published it to the development environment, right? And there's a little red circle there that you see. Well, the red circle tells me that something in the metrics is not quite right. So I can take a look. And indeed, I see that readability score, which is highlighted, which is lower than the threshold. But guess what? I would agree that, it's minor deviation and I'm fine. And frankly, our agents are really good. They're experts, so we can probably have them be just okay with this kind of output. So the other scores looked fine, meaning the summaries are word-wise are pretty close. But just a word of caution here is that these metrics really, they are not human metrics, they are automated metrics. And this is an open research area of what is the best way to evaluate output by an LLM. And frankly, at the moment, it is the human still. Right? We are the best at judging whether a summary is semantically the right wording. Okay, so Jaakko, back to Jaakko. I'm here, I'm looking at the score, and I'm pretty good about it. So I'm going to actually just click and produce a report because some of my, stakeholders, they don't really want to get into the platform. So I generate a report and I send it to them, and then they get this guaranteed feeling like, okay, work is moving forward. Now, I'm happy with what's been doing so far. So now I'm going to say to our MLOps team, meaning the team that is responsible for moving this model, this prompt template and the model to production, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to assign, this is ready for you guys to validate and then push to production. And why are they separate roles? It's because you want to keep the development and the operations as separate teams so that they are not, there's not an interest of the developer to push something into prod that is not valid. So we've got always separation of duties. Okay, so it's ready for AI asset validation. I'm Jaakko and over and out. All right, I'm Ben. I have just received from Jaakko. I have seen that there's a task there waiting for me, and I'm going to go and log into the platform, and I'm going to start the promotion exercise. So I'm going to be promoting this asset, which is now frozen because it is no longer being modified. I'm going to promote it to a space. Now, in reality, I would never promote directly from development to production, obviously. But because this is a 20-minute demo, I'm kind of jumping ahead. So I am going to promote it to production, but really, it should go to pre-production, after which it should go to production. But here we are, the scenario, we will be deploying it to production. So I need some kind of a space where I move this asset. So I'm going to promote it there. And after that, I'm going to give it a name. Because now this is going to be actually an API in production available for applications to call it. So I'm going to call it Claims Summarizer. Makes sense. And here is the deployed prompt. I get some endpoints. You can see if my application is sitting in the same hosting environment, I can use private endpoints. If my application is somewhere external, in this case, it's actually the claims application. It's running in a completely different environment. So it's going to be calling, with credentials, of course, it's going to be calling the public endpoint. So now, if I look at this, yep, looks good, says Ben. I can see that it was in development, and look, now there it is in production with no steps in between, which should be the case. Okay, there it is in production, and it is pending evaluation, meaning what do I need to do to now start monitoring? It's running there, it can accept requests from the claims application to summarize things, but I need to monitor it. I need to know how it's doing once it's there running for real. So I'm going to be doing something called activation, which means I will tell the system to monitor this endpoint as requests come in. And at the moment, no requests have come in yet. We just deployed it. But this is where the activity will be. So agents will be using the system, and they will be actually giving feedback on how good the summaries are. And that is how we will evaluate over time as there are requests coming in, how well our model is doing. That's the end of our scenario. We have a model now in production. What did we see? Okay, so in this example, we saw a model owner registering a use case. That's the beginning of any governance activity of an AI use case. We saw model developer Sanna, do the work of creation, of evaluating in the development environment. And then we saw Jaakko basically approving, says, yep, good enough. Hey, MLOps, take it to production. And then we saw model operator Ben actually do the thing. So this is one cycle, and there will be repeated cycle as there are enhancements to the model, and as the model undergoes, when there's feedback coming in from production, there will be potentially, usually there are improvements that need to be put in place. So that cycle there is just an example that if you can do all of this entire activity in one platform, you're in a very good place, because that means you don't have to be going in different portals and different links and different UIs to do the job. But it's important to be able to do that all in one place, even if the models themselves are elsewhere. I want the governance to be in one place. So I talked about the three concepts of AI governance, and today you saw an example of what lifecycle governance means in this context. And maybe last, I wanted to just, all of the audience that's here. So we have the responsibility, we are in the IT profession, many of us, or some of us, most of us, or you might be coming into the IT profession. We need to take responsibility, and if we are engaged in use cases and organizations that adopt AI, we need to be the ones who are advocating for this. AI is here to stay. We cannot, it's being adopted left and right, but we need to be the ones who state the facts that there are risks associated, right? There are legal requirements, and I need to be able to, in a trustworthy manner, track those things so that my AI activities actually comply. So I hope that this demonstration using watsonx.governance gave you a little bit of a feel of how one might do that. There are platforms out there, and of course my choice was watsonx.governance, but there are other platforms out there to do the same. So I'd like to leave it with this message of happy governance, and hope to meet you again.